We're in Romans chapter 13, starting in verse 8 is where we're at.
Last week.
Okay. Owe nothing to anyone except to love one another, for he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. For this, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet. And if there is any other commandment, it is summed up in this word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does not work evil against the neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. We're going to stop there. So we just finished a major section in chapter 13, 1 through 7-ish, about being subjected to government or the authority, how to deal with authority. So it's you and authority kind of thing. Getting this section about how you deal. I don't know if that's the right word. I'm struggling with the word. Relate. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. How you relate to others is what it is. And really, at the end of 12, it was about relating to fellow brothers, Christians. So it's kind of a thing here. So we get into this section here about that. The very opening phrase of verse 8, owe nothing to anyone. Pretty common to use that kind of piece of that scripture in financial matters, when you're dealing with how you should spend your money. So it kind of lends off to saying, hey, Christians, you shouldn't owe any money. You should not be ever in debt. Don't use debt, type of thing. But that's not really, I don't think, if we look at this closer, it's not saying don't be in debt. Although it might use kind of those words to, I think other translations have it kind of slightly different. I think the NIV has the way of saying, don't let your debts go outstanding. There's more of that. Now, NIV is not a word-for-word translation. It's an idea to idea, thought to thought kind of translation.
Let no debt remain outstanding.
Outstanding. There it is. Yeah, thank you.
I guess, sorry to stop, but when you think of outstanding, does that mean make your payments on time?
Yeah.
Or not have any debts
To me,
at all?
that's the way I look at that, is that if you do have debt,
make sure you honor
follow
the
the contract.
Yeah.
You follow that, because otherwise you're behind. That might be the true debt, is
Right.
you're behind payments. Although I would say, as a financial advice by Howard Kearney, being in debt is not really the best thing.
Sure.
Okay.
But if you have let's say, a mortgage on your house and you pay it religiously, no pun intended, is that considered an outstanding debt in our terminology?
I think not. I don't think it's an outstanding debt as long as you've been paying for it.
It's debt, it's just not
debt, right.
outstanding meaning outside the
Right.
bounds of the contract.
If you will, if you think it this way, the transaction or the contract could be, you want to buy my house, here's your payment plan. Oh, all cash, paid. That's one payment plan.
Right.
Another payment plan may be, okay, 50% now, 50% later.
Right.
Another one might be 20 years spread across.
Right.
Those are all payment plans. It's just we're negotiating the terms. So I think there's I don't think there's a prohibition about debt. I think there's a caution about that. That might be the better way of describing that.
In my business, I've had some, I guess, more extreme Muslims who said that they are not allowed to take on debt or pay interest.
I've heard Christians say the same thing.
And so they put their businesses in their wives' name, and the wives are
Wow.
So they do, it's just not in their name. Oh, okay.
There's a new
Really?
one.
That's a common thing?
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it more than once, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't realize
They-
that.
A lot of times they put the businesses in the wives' name.
A lot of people do
Yeah.
But then,
get benefits that way.
Well, the SBA
Yeah, exactly.
has
SBA.
priority over on
Yes.
Ladies and
Right.
minorities as far as
if it's a woman-owned company, you get all sorts of deals
you
and
do. Yes,
tax
sir.
breaks and
Right,
whatever.
exactly.
So, but yeah.
There is that.
But
Okay.
Howard, do you think this is talking about financial matters?
No, I don't.
Okay.
That's really kind of what I was trying to get at, is people will use this
Right.
as a common way of saying,
Yeah.
this is a financial matter.
And
I don't really think so.
No, I don't see it that way at all.
I think it's more about setting yourself to obligations.
Yeah,
Like favors you owe.
Could be that.
What do you call it when I have something over you? Not graft, that's not the word, I'm drawing a blank on the word. The thing in politics and stuff is that I got something on you, so you'll do what I say. So I want to release the Epstein letter on you or whatever. You know, I don't know if there's a name for that.
oh, and leverage.
What's that? Leverage, yeah, I guess leverage, I guess, is that kind of what this is kind of going for, is don't put yourself in
No,
a.
I really don't, because I think if the way my words out here is, owe nothing to anyone except, and I think that's the word, that's the key to this
Yeah, I
phrase,
think-
is except
Yeah.
to love one another. Your only obligation, your only debt is to love one
Yeah,
another.
That's right,
Okay, I think that's the full thought
yes.
of that. It's not really about
Going
financial,
to the extreme, if I loan you a tool,
you better return it.
well, of course you better return it, but, you know, you would owe me that tool back, but I'm doing it out of love to let you borrow my tool, if you will,
Yeah,
as a favor,
yeah,
and when you finish plowing your field or whatever, you give it back.
Yeah.
You know, but, and so you owe me that plow. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be argumentative, I'm just trying
No.
to understand the context, because to me, that also is not a problem, because out of love, I'm sharing my tool with you. And you might give me a bushel of corn afterwards to thank me or something, but that's not you know, yes, we owe each other something, or you owe me back my tool, but it's not, I don't see that as being a negative. Because
Yeah.
you could also argue that you shouldn't borrow anything from anybody, you shouldn't take any, you should be totally independent on your own. I'm not suggesting that, but that's, you could read that into it. Just curious what your thoughts.
I mean, I don't see this as being a transactional thing. I think he's using debt, almost like an analogy to how we're supposed to feel about love for one another. We should always be seeking to give that love as if it was a debt, to pay, to pay that love, kind of pay forward, love for one another. I mean, that's how I kind of, because the rest of it, really, we're not
Yeah, I
dealing
was
with
gonna say,
anything.
if you go on down to the rest of it,
It's a, yeah,
it kind of emphasizes, so if you remember in Matthew 22:37 and following, Jesus summed up all the commands into two, and this
Right.
is emphasizing the second of the two.
Right.
The first being love God, and the second,
Right.
love, love one another. So this is emphasizing the second.
Maybe it's an obligation thing, owe nothing out of obligation. I don't know. I think we're agreeing to it, I'm just trying to dissect the words a little bit.
Because there's so many chapters.
What do you got for
Matthew 7:12,
7:12?
yeah.
So that would be,
Ultimately found it.
in the, Sermon on the Mount. Does your book have?
Yeah,
Does yours have set, Matthew?
It's, it is a part of the Sermon on the Mount series there. Therefore, in all things, whatever you want people to do for you, so do for them. For this is the law and the prophets. It's almost the golden rule kind of thing.
it's kind of paying it forward,
Yeah.
right? You do, if you want people to treat you this way, then treat them that way.
Exactly. If
You
you
know.
want them to love you, you ought to be loving them.
Right, yeah.
Type of stuff. And that's, I think, is what is meant by, for he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law.
Right.
It's part of that idea there with it.
And and I think as we get more into this, we'll find out that, with that love, it's not an emotional thing, but it's an action.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and it's not a series, which we're gonna get into now in 9, it's not a series of nots. It's, a checklist. It's not do this, don't do this, don't do that. Although it is clear that we should avoid these things. Do not, I mean, he's not dismissing, do not commit adultery, as mine says in verse 9. He's not saying, go ahead and do it. That's not his phrasing here over the overall. I think he's trying to put it in perspective. You look at all of these major laws that are in Exodus 20, that what we call the 10 Commandments, and we look at all these major things, and they're prohibitions for the most part. Don't commit murder, don't commit adultery. But in perspective to what the greater law is,
Yeah,
and you got to put it in that right relationship.
yeah. If you love your neighbor, these things don't even come into
They don't
play.
even come to play. Exactly.
They don't even enter your thought process, right?
Right, exactly. And it's a danger for some folks. I like saying for some folks because it leaves me out. Yeah, it's not me I'm talking about. It's a danger here for those that want checklists. Those that say, I am right because I followed this,
Yeah.
and that's what makes everything right, is because I followed them. But that's what he's not trying to say here is, in verse 9. Because he goes into this, and mine says, and if there is any other commandments. I think we could call it, we would use the word et cetera in that, okay? Not commit adultery, not murder, not steal, not covet, etc. This is the way I would kind of word that. Because it gets into this, it's summed up in this word. Word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. And we see those commandments not only in Exodus, also in Leviticus, where isn't there a thing about, I want to call it like the Shamar or something like that? It's a phrase that they use, love the Lord your God
With all your heart.
all soul and mind.
The Shema?
Is that the
The
Shema?
Shema.
Shema?
What is that? Is that a Jewish name, word?
Yeah, it's
it's
a set of phrases.
Deuteronomy 6, I think is where that,
Yeah,
the Shema.
and it's basically like a greeting as well.
Oh, okay.
Is what they would
Right.
do to
It's a creed.
Creed.
It's a creed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anywho, so first of all, it gets to this word, and I really wanted to nitpick on the word. It says your neighbor. In previous sections, it was about fellow Christians, and then it was about the authority that's over you. Now we get to this neighbor guy. You've not met my neighbor, have you?
I think I got his brother next to me.
Right, exactly. And I know I'm going to sound like a Pharisee, but who exactly is my neighbor?
Anybody.
That's the question.
Well, as soon as you were going down that trail, I started thinking, all right, neighbor is your next door neighbor and the people in Mandeville.
Yeah,
But it doesn't count for those people over there.
well,
I'm being argumentative,
it's the people that are in your influential.
Right.
You know, I mean, the
What
people
about the
that are
people
around
that
you.
aren't? And in today's society, communication and plane travel and all that sort of stuff, that doesn't count for the non-Americans. That doesn't count for the Iranians and the, pick your country.
Yeah.
I
See
see
what
what
I
you're
mean?
saying. Yep.
But you can only have influence over the people that you come in contact with, and I think that's
Or an individual basis, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's the point here.
Yeah.
Is, this is relational, right? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the people that we can influence, right? Because this is all talking about influence here. We're talking about influence people and the people around us with the gospel. That's what it is, about living a life that influences them to come to the knowledge of Jesus Christ and what he has done for us right? And the fact that we have assurance of eternal life because of what he has done for us. That's what this is all about. It is about bringing those things together and making, once again, reminding us of that responsibility and how we go about doing that.
Okay, so I asked the question of who is my neighbor. I'm going to ask it this way now. Who is not my neighbor? There's an implication that it's a select group. You have to love your neighbor. Okay, that's a selection of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So who is he filtering out? Who are the people that he says, you don't have to love those?
People that you don't know.
So that was the question that the Pharisee asked Jesus.
Was hoping for, right. He was
Yes.
actually hoping for the
He was
answer.
hoping for the answer, because they had been debating, what makes a Jew a Jew, versus, everybody else.
Right.
Is it okay to kick the Romans out, to kill them,
Mhm.
and all that? And,
Yeah.
and of course, Jesus used the Good Samaritan parable that we know. And the guy was so flabbergasted that he couldn't even say the Samaritan was the good name. Yeah.
Right.
He's like the guy who took pity.
Yeah.
The guy who took pity, right.
Well, thinking on the inside, you're thinking on the perimeter, I'm thinking on the inside, you could almost argue family, your immediate household, as they used to call it, family would not necessarily be your neighbor. That's where I draw the line. I consider my family different than my neighbors. Not that
We certainly treat them differently.
well, you do certain things for your family that you wouldn't do for your neighbor.
Right.
I'm talking about your kids, for instance, your wife and your kids, or grandkids, so that's, so to me, that's a different group. I'm not saying they can't be covered under this umbrella, but on the inside, there's family, then there's neighbors, then there's, I don't know if there's an outer perimeter like you were talking about, the Samaritans and those evil Middle Easterns or non-Americans, or, pick your border.
I think this is quoted from Leviticus, then the original seems to be among the fellow Israelites would be, that's who you would be
Associated
seeing,
with.
yeah, and that's who you would be seeing the judges, the councils, or whoever to resolve that stuff. But we're talking about the Good Samaritan. It actually does specifically, he actually says, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus gives the parable, and on the end of it says, "Which of these three do you think proved to be the neighbor who fell among the robbers?" So I think you're seeing an expansion of neighbor
Absolutely.
from Israelite to essentially it's those on your side, those that you can have a relationship with, that are not your enemy.
Yeah.
So in this case, the robbers, whoever they were, or a Levite passed by, a priest passed by, those you would think would be his neighbors, but actually was the Samaritan who was the person who proved to be his neighbor.
Well,
He didn't know anything.
I think they were all, all of them were neighbors to the man who had been beaten, right? But they didn't all act in the way that Jesus said we should act
Right.
towards their neighbor.
But
Right.
the two people who should be his neighbors didn't act as much
Exactly.
neighbor as the Samaritan.
Right.
Yes. So I think that neighbor does have a flexible use, but it's not limited to like a legalistic requirements. There's the spirit of kind of like the whole for the commandments, you shall not do this. You can be very legalistic with it, but what's the spirit of it all? And that's what's captured is love your neighbors yourself.
Right.
I can say you can say drive safely. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it means I stop at all red lights, I obey all traffic signals, I follow the speed limits. Does that make you a safe driver? No, but those are things that you need to do to be a safe driver.
Right.
Kind of see the spirit of it all is loving your neighbor, and these are some like the core main things. If I'm going to describe what that means.
I mean, I think it could even be, I mean, you know, if I go to a building and I'm doing business or whatever, and I meet somebody, right? That person becomes my neighbor, right? If I'm driving a vehicle getting on the causeway, and there's two cars coming, and that other car, in all reality, because I'm a believer, that car is now my neighbor, right? So I should act in a certain way towards that person in that vehicle, whether it's allowing him in or do whatever, right? So I think it's this whole idea that anyone that we interface with, we should always have that love attitude toward them. And you know, that's the way that God desires for us to live, because it reflects good on Him.
Yeah.
You know, we should always be looking to make God look good. And I kind of think that's where this whole thing is going.
Well, and building on what you had asked, well, who's not your neighbor, that's almost like saying, well, okay, who is it okay to murder?
Well,
or
exactly,
have
that's
adultery?
exactly right, that's right,
Good insight.
that's right.
So what about the phrase stranger danger? I mean, we've been pushing in our society, if you don't know them personally, then they must be mean to be harmful to you. They are the danger.
The
Is that
potential
part
exists.
of-
Yeah.
Of this? Let me make it even more complicated of a question. What do we do with John 3:16? For God so loved the world. Paul doesn't say to love the world. He uses this very unique phrase of neighbor.
Well, yeah, but I think God's perspective is different than our perspective.
Shut
But I'm smiling because I just had this stranger, well,
Stranger danger.
you're always adding to it. Conversation with my granddaughter yesterday, we had some time, we were playing on the mud pile, and so we started talking about it. And it's just funny because some people are truly want to help a lost child or a child that, you know, and who's to say that this person came up is not really trying to help them? But you all know the other side of that.
Right.
And, you know, so we have this obligation to protect our loved ones, or other kids for that matter. So where does it fit into this?
How do you
I
apply
don't
it?
know. It's,
Right.
if everybody behaved like Christians, we'd have a lot better society.
Yeah,
But we're not there.
no,
So you're not treating the stranger poorly, you're just protecting your child.
right.
Yes.
So it's okay
Okay to what?
not love that person?
But
We're not
we're
saying
not
not-
not loving them, we're
not
just
not.
telling her to be careful.
Well, that's an interesting thing.
But you're right.
If,
I mean,
if you don't love, I'm trying to, if you're not loving them, I don't know how you reconcile.
I'm not just shooting all the strangers,
It
you know,
doesn't
it's
mean
just
you
that,
wouldn't
just be
help
careful.
them, but you're not gonna, welcome them into your home and give them access to your family.
Yeah, I guess that brings to the question about live your neighbor as yourself. How do you treat yourself? If that's the standard, you want to love them, but only as yourself, as opposed to loving them as if like God did.
Mhm.
How do you do that? How's that shown?
Well, I wouldn't allow myself to hurt my family either.
Yeah.
Some you trust, some you don't trust.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing there.
Well, when Jesus sends out his disciples, right, he says, I'm sending you out as wolves, so he recognizes that there are wolves, right? And that we are to be wise around the wolves.
As a wolf.
Right. So that, you know, I don't think we're called to be doormats or anything like that, that we are to use wisdom in the way that we, you know, we work with people, but our ultimate heart needs to be towards love, right?
It's really counter to our nature, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right. I mean, I think that's the whole
That's why
point of, you know, having a new heart and, you know, having the Spirit live within us, is that we can do things that in our nature or anti our flesh, right?
Yeah, we can't dismiss the fact that sin has entered the world. We have to be aware.
Interesting. 10, love does not work evil against a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. Let's talk about that first phrase. Love does not work evil against a neighbor. What do you guys read that as?
Mine says do no wrong.
The whole sentence? Well, do you
No,
read the whole verse?
Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law.
Right. Evil, wrong. Okay.
Yeah. But do no wrong sounds easier to grasp than evil.
Evil sounds worse than doing wrong.
Well, hard to.
To me, it does.
It does to me too. Evil sounds a lot worse than
True, but
doing
it's
wrong.
also harder to define.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where wrong is.
I'm just wrong. I'm not evil. I'm just doing wrong.
And it's interesting that word is agape love, too.
Oh, really?
It's not phileo.
Not a phileo love.
Mhm.
Interesting. That's a sacrificial
Mhm.
love. That's not a like being polite kind of love. That's letting your rights be superseded by someone else's rights. Right? Paul's gone from preaching to meddling right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think that's the whole, it's the whole definition of the gospel, right? What we're called to be.
Right?
We're called to love sacrificially,
Right.
to think of others higher than ourselves. That's why we get into that whole thing about owing nothing to anybody except love. You know, it's that daily laying down our lives for others, but not for our own benefit, but for God's
The
benefit,
gospel.
right? For the gospel,
Right.
you know.
And it's really cool how such a basic concept of the core tenets of Christianity, love God with all your heart, love your neighbors as yourselves. That's the basics of faith, and so you can live your faith without a deep background in the faith. But the further you go into the faith, and the more you learn, all that's just reinforced more and more. So it's the simplest of concepts that you can give to anybody, but it's also the constant reminder to whatever audience you have at any stage in faith, that like this is above all, it's this.
And this is the thing that we need to be continually reminded about.
Yes.
Because we were talking earlier, right? If we don't continually remind ourselves about this, then we become self-absorbed, right? And we start thinking about ourselves, forget about our neighbors, and then our actions become other than what this is saying.
You get all these
Right.
legalistic extrapolations like, oh, well, I can't have any beds, so I'm gonna put business in my wife's name kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that goes against the spirit of
Yeah.
anything that is being talked about.
But it's this whole idea of just this, you know, it's the reason why we should come to church. It's the reason why we should read the word. It's the reason that we should pray is because we forget.
Exactly.
We forget.
On the last phrase, it talks about the fulfillment of the law.
Yeah.
If is it dangerous to say, oh, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm going to fulfill the law
Right.
by doing all this.
Right.
Is that just as wrong because you're just checking boxes?
Yeah.
And that's not what Paul was trying to say, check the boxes. He's just saying, what is he trying to say about fulfilling the law? What does that mean to fulfill the law?
Well, it's to be in agreement with what God desires for you to do. It's how God desires for us to act. You know, if we do that, we don't have to check boxes. Every box is checked
It's
when we do that.
sort of what Matt was trying to pull out is it's following the spirit
Yes.
of that law.
Right.
What did Exodus 20 really try to say is
Right.
that's the
Yeah.
That's what the Jews got. I mean, that's what Jesus was condemning the Pharisees about,
Yes,
because
absolutely.
there's 613 laws. They were trying to follow all of them to the T, and
thinking they
thinking that was fulfilling the law. And,
yeah, they misunderstood.
Mhm.
Right.
or misapplied.
He always went right to the core of what the, you know, the spirit of the law.
Yeah,
Always went there.
good reminder.
So I agree with the whole composite of what has been discussed. And one other facet that came to my mind that is, when we're talking about love, sometimes it's kind of just taken as this warm, fuzzy,
Right,
that's true.
it's kind of a Joel Osteen approach to preaching, where you're not preaching really, you know, the full essence of the scriptures. Maybe you're just saying just love. Everything's just love. Or it's kind of like the '60s, you know, come together now type love. It's just love.
Right. It's just
I love it.
emotional,
Piece of love.
good feeling.
Whereas you know,
Towards
this is a little something different. This is
Oh, yeah.
fulfilling
Yeah.
the command by loving, you know, your neighbor.
Yes, and this love is an action. It's actually doing something, yeah.
Wow, because that brings in a whole nother thing about love being, one of the major aspects of love is discipline.
Yeah.
You love others by discipline.
Yeah, or you
Yeah.
talk about teaching the whole gospel.
Oh, you teach-
about Jesus,
Right.
and about needing a savior, and teaching the whole package,
Right.
with real
Yeah.
love.
I didn't mean discipline as in punishing, I meant as in training up, maturing,
Yeah.
correcting people
Right.
where it needs to be corrected. Wow, that's a whole nother thing. Okay, we have to stop here because of time. What are you guys praying for?